Hello, everybody, and welcome to your Thursday critique. We've got a bunch of stills to go through, also some videos. We've got Ashley's up and loaded here, so we'll start there. So the first thing I'll mention is about the camera move, and this is just because of Maya's default animation. It creates ramp in and ramp outs on an animation. So the curve has a flat bit at the beginning, then it gets going, then it slows down at the end. So I'm not a big fan of camera moves that start to slow down at the end and then don't actually come to a stop. So I would just make that a linear, I'm sorry, not linear. Is it linear? Whichever the animation curve that keeps it on a straight line, so that it doesn't kind of like rest into place without actually stopping. It feels unsatisfying as a viewer for that to happen. From the lighting standpoint, let's see, let's just stop here at the last frame. I want some clarification on what our main light sources are, because it's kind of like these sushis are kind of being lit from all over the place. Like, is there light emanating from this? Is it kind of a warm campfire type feel? It feels like that. And if that's the case, then I really want to feel the light on their face and then have them go dark back behind. But it feels like there's a lot of light on top of them. There's a lot of light just kind of surrounding them as the whole. And I also don't feel like this is emanating light. Like, there's not enough there to do that. So I would really decide on like what the main key light direction is, and then use these as kind of like rim influencers, like just some warm influence on the rim. Also, the light is very yellow, and you can see it here on the white arm, and it's kind of drawing the whole thing into like a yellow realm. So I would pull back on that a little bit, and then this is the tough part with white elements like the rice is. Like, make sure they don't blow out like this or get too, like I said, this yellow is looking a little bit not white, basically, and a little dingy. So just watch out for that. But that would be my main thing from the lighting standpoint, is really focus in on one main light source and use that as to cause the direction in the scene as a whole. And don't worry about, like, pick one. And don't worry about accommodating the other ones, because you can always we can always dim these down so they go away if they're too much of a problem. But really kind of focus in on that one key light source. All right. Next up we have Dani. So a couple things. We'll start with one. So I'm noticing that there's not much contact shadow between her and the ground. Her shadow is pretty light. I think the shadow can get a little bit darker if you have that separated. But more importantly, I think it's important if we run an ambient occlusion pass between her feet and the ground, just to get a little bit more contact shadow between the feet and her ground. So some other things. So I like the whites. They're feeling a lot better. I'm a little confused by these yellow bits. Those look a little bit dingier, a little bit more less like pristine. And also the whites are getting some dark shadows on this side. And yeah, like you see here, the yellows are kind of are not like that candy coated thing that we're looking for. Additionally, yeah, and then the other couple things, one, I think I'm wondering if her boots can get a little brighter. They feel a little dark there. And then this window has gotten very bright. I like that there's a reflection in there now, but I feel like it's just kind of glowy, and we can tone that down. And then lastly, there's some funkiness in the depth of field, specifically this tree right here. You can see that it's out of focus, but what's behind it and in front of it isn't. And then it also looks like the fence might be cutting through it. So I'm not really sure. Like this is a weird read in here. And then these back here, which are in the far distance, are in focus too. So just check what's going on with your focus there and make sure that is all behaving as expected. And then lastly, I would brighten up the roof a little bit too, because it's like getting in here, it's getting very dark, and all that. So that's where I would move for you from there. And all right, so next up we're gonna go into our stills. So Adrian, let's look at these ABs. I think the brighter might be a little bit better. We'll stick with that for now. And so for the eyes, you asked the question about what I meant by more engagement. Totally valid question. The biggest thing is, because this character is like the center point and we really want to create an emotional connection with her is that we want to really take some time to make the eyes look engaging and look detailed. And with that, it's, you're already kind of starting to get it in that, you've got your eye white with some shaping in there. You want to, but the big thing that you want to do now is you want to push more value into the iris of the eye, and also shaping in there as well. So, and again, if you remember back to our lecture, it's counter to the key position. So it'd actually be a little bit lighter on this side and on this side, more so on the key side than the fill side. But you really want to brighten that up and create a value shift between those two, and then really get some nice eye dings in there. You can add a little bit of reflection of the surroundings as well. I think that will help. But you don't want to make it too muddy in there. So maybe just a very slight bit. But I know you said you were still waiting on something, and so you wanted to focus on the eyes. So that's really what I mean. Is when I'm talking about making more engagement, it's about just like taking a minute to really do a strong pass to the eyes. So shaping and a clean white on the sclera, shaping and a nice punchy color on the iris, and then dark pupil that separates from, and you can see each of those three sections individually, and then a nice clean eye ding between the pupil and iris. I think that's the best way for you to go there. So but yeah, other than that, we'll wait on the other adjustments to go from there. So Amit, I pulled in your previous version to your updated version. This is, so I like that we pulled back a little bit on the key light. I think that's looking really well. I like that we're getting this little trickle of light in here. I kind of like, and we're getting more shaping on the screen right side of his face, which looks great. I think we could put just a slight bit more of that coolness back in there. I think that would look really good. Let's pull back into this. Yeah, because we're kind of missing a little bit of that cool value up in here. So, but other than that, the other adjustments you made are really, really good, and I would just add that in, and I think we're in a really good spot there. Dani, so let's see. So this is the current version, and I still think we're getting some crunchiness in there. And I actually went back 2 versions to kind of show you. So yes, we should darken outside the window, but I really want you to focus in more on this region in here. So like, do you see how there's a little bit of value in there in the wall? That makes a big difference, because as we go from this brighter area to this, like having it just be bright to nothing is a pretty extreme shift. And in the way that we were talking about, like light hitting here and bouncing up, light's going to hit here and bounce up into these regions too. So we'll want a little bit of value in fading it off into the darkness, but we don't want to see like the edge of this line be a hard delineation between dark and bright, if I could write better. But that's really what we're looking for there. And then let's see what other, and this is from yesterday. Yeah, kind of looks better. But that's the big one, is just getting, because it's, as you pump more light in there, it'll actually create more secondary light. So it might even be a matter of pushing it a little bit further past that, but just a little bit of cool value happening back there would be really, really helpful. For your playground, previous version of this as well. I kind of like the more saturated colors, just because they feel a little more playgroundy and kid-like. Good job plugging this hole. Looks like you just fattened up the buildings a little bit. That's great. In terms of the glow, I like this color a little better. It might be getting a little strong on the glow. This bench looks a lot better. The other thing that I want you to think about when you're adding, so it looks like you added some like a noise dirt pass to this, and I think that's great. The one thing that you want to consider more of, so adding like a general dirt crud layer is great. But you when you're doing shader work, you want to make sure to really think about and look at reference of how these objects are being used, because there will be certain amounts of like wear and tear that happen in certain areas. Like take for, and I'm saying this without looking at reference, but like take for instance the slide. There's probably more. It's probably more worn out right down the middle where kids slide down, and a little more robust here on the sides. It's probably more worn down right down the middle than it is on the edges. There's probably some like dirt and grime and buildup at the base of these poles right around here, things like that. But having this gross overall dirt map helps. I want you to get into like a little bit more detail of to how this equipment's being used and how we go from there. The other thing, it looks like, I want to point this out, it looks like we lost the top of our brick wall. Because like now we have that very hard line there. So it may just be, no, I'm looking close at it. It looks like we lost it. So just be aware of that. But yeah, I think we're making good progress here. All right, Rebecca, let's go make this a little bigger. All right, your previous version here. I like the fill value. It's coming up nicely. I'm just wondering if we can't push it a little bit more. Like I'm gonna go ahead and bring in this reference. Sorry, I didn't realize there was such a size difference between the two. So we'll go ahead and make him about Mr. Bean's size. And really what I want to do is I just want to isolate in on his fill side of his face. And I want to put these side by side so we can kind of compare them. So looking at this value versus this value, I still say you have a little bit more range to go and a little bit more warmth that you can push in here. And I think that will help. But like I like the shaping that you're getting in there now. It's just about getting like this, a little bit of the pinkishness on the skin in there will really, really play a good role. And then with this character, I struggle with this too. Just watch out for the contrast in the eye whites. It gets like really bright in some areas and really dark in some areas. You might need to adjust that and just kind of balance it out. You can do that in the comp too if you want, but just something to be aware of with that. All right, and last up we have Shibli. So really great progress. I mean, this is exactly what I was talking about. Like look at his. Let's start with his hand and his finger. Like adding that little bit of subsurface scattering, like you can see it right on that shadow edge, right? Look at his thumb, his finger, his curled, his index finger and his curled fingers. Just at that like line, having that little bit of warmth there really, really, really makes a big, big difference. I like the level that you've gotten to with the subsurface on the snail as well. I think that's working out really well. Some areas of improvement. Oh, I also like the additional eye, brightening up the eyes and a little bit more bounce in there and kind of like a softening of the light back there. That looks really good. So some areas of improvement. I think that you've got this kind of blue haze happening now, which is good. I just want to push it back further. I don't want it to affect anything in here or really anything on the boy. I want it to, maybe just like a slight bit on him. I really want it to be more back here and back here. To kind of separate out those regions, because what's happening is we're losing a little bit of warmth on him and he's kind of purpling up a little bit, and I want to keep him a little bit on the warm side. And same thing with the snail. Like again, if we look at reference, the shell itself is actually very warm, so I want to see this get a little bit warmer, and also that haze kind of breaks down some of the contrast points that are working really well. If you can soften this shadow slightly, that would be rad. Just because again, like we're getting all these soft shapes and this like hard line is a little off-putting. And then lastly, there are some weird edges in here that I want you to look into and see what we can do about that. And also it's still feeling a little blue in this grass here. So just adding a little bit of yellow in there will help out a lot. And then we will go from there. So, all right, great. All right, this is all looking good, everybody. I hope you all are having a wonderful Thursday, and I can't wait to see what you got tomorrow. All right, happy lighting, everybody.